3, 2, 1, let's go. Hi everybody and welcome to another exciting edition of Boring JavaScript. I'm your host, the Virtuoid, aka Mike Smith, and today we're going to be talking about the isNaN function. That's right, you have a variable, you want to know whether it's a number or not? Well, isNaN will tell you that. If not, it will definitely leave you confused. Want to see how it works? Well, let's get started. The isNaN function does exactly what it says it does. It tests whether the argument you pass to it is a number or it's not. And because it is not a number, by that means the function has a negative in it, it will return false if the argument is actually a number, and it will return true if the argument is not a number. Thus, isNaN should always return true on things like strings. And as you can tell from our example here, our first example uses a number as the isNaN. Our second example here uses a string for isNaN. So let's just take a quick look at that. Let's go over to our code and let's type in node isNaN. And sure enough, false and true, exactly what we expected. So that's it, really? Not quite. You see, there are a couple little gotchas that you need to be aware of. So let's take a quick look at our code again and let's delete. We'll bring up some extra code here. I have the number 1 inside of a string. I have an OXOA, and I have an OXOA within a string. Each one of these are going to return false. Are we certain? Well, let's take a look. Let's go back to our code, clear off the screen, bring it back, and yep, sure enough, the last 3 came out to be false. Why did that happen? Well, let's flip back over to code and let me show you why it happens. First of all, this happened, line 5 here, because that happens to be hexadecimal notation. I know that looks strange to you if you're not used to hexadecimal. For us old timers, yeah, hexadecimal is second nature. But this is what we call hexadecimal notation. So this calculates actually to the number of 10. And the number 10 obviously is a number, so that should return false. But what about these two things? Well, here's the key. JavaScript, if you remember correctly, is not a strongly typed language. And what do I mean by strongly typed? Strongly typed means that you declare a variable to be a string or number, boolean, or whatever. And in JavaScript, you just declare a variable. And so what JavaScript is doing within the isNaN function is it tries to do a coercion of the variable. So if the variable comes in as a string, it's going to look at the inside of the string and sit there and say, does that look like a number or not? Well, if it's a number, then I'm going to go ahead and declare it that might be a number, so I'm going to return false. The same thing with OXOA. That's hexadecimal notation, so JavaScript's going to sit there and say, okay, yeah, it's a string, but OXOA is actually a number if you take a part of the string, so we'll make it into a regular number. That's why all 3 of these return false. This returned true, virtually, because there's no way that can be coerced into a number, while the number 1 here and the OXOA could coerce to be numbers. So that is why that isNaN can sometimes on certain strings return false instead of returning true. So you got to be aware of that if you're ever using this function. Now, if you really want to get confused, we got a couple other examples, and that's coming up next. So let's take a look at some more examples of isNaN and how, honestly, how weird it can be. I have 4 statements here. isNaN, we're passing a boolean true. isNaN, we're passing a boolean false. isNaN, we're passing null. And isNaN, we're passing undefined. Each and every single one of these should turn out to be true, because none of these are indeed a number. Let's go over to node and take a look. So let's type in node other, and oh, what happened here? Well, 3 of them came out to be false and 1 of them came out to be true. So what happened? Well, let's go back to our code here. Remember that this all comes back down again to type coercion. JavaScript has coerced a boolean true to be the number 1. It has coerced the boolean false to be the number 0, a null to be number 0, and undefined actually really is truly, honest to goodness, undefined. So that is why this turned out to be false, 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 and true. Because from JavaScript's point of view, technically, these 3 are actual numbers since they can be coerced into numbers. This can't be coerced into a number, so therefore it blows up on you. Are we absolutely certain that's what happened? Yeah, we are. So let's see what happens with this funky looking statement here. Now, please don't ever do this. In fact, be honest with you, I've never done this in my entire life until I started preparing for this video, and I was shocked when I found out about this. Let's take a look at this. I am adding 1 plus the Boolean true, 1 plus the Boolean false, and 1 plus null. I should end up with something, it should error out on me. I shouldn't be able to add a 1 and a Boolean or a 1 and a null together, right? Right? You know it's getting ready to happen, don't you? All right, let's take a quick look at it. There, and we'll type in note other, and yep, I actually got values of 2, 1, and 1. So what happened there? Again, type coercion. As I said earlier, true coerced itself to 1, false coerced itself to 0, and null coerces itself to 0. So of course 1 plus 1 is 2. 1 plus 0 is 1, and 1 plus 0 is 1. So you can technically, because of type coercion, add 1 and a Boolean together, or add a number and Boolean together and get your values, or add 1 and a null together and get certain values. Don't ever do that. But I kind of want to show you that type coercions can kind of trip you up, and it'll trip up is not a number. Let me show you one other really funky example here. Is not a number blank string. Really? Let's see what happens. It should come out to be true. Yeah, okay, I've got to make sure I get this right. It should come out to be true because a blank string is not a number. Let's take a look. And you know it's not going to. Yep, came out to be false. Now again, why did it become to be false? Well, for the same reason as everything else. It got basically a blank string is considered a null value or an empty value, and that, or a false value, actually that's a better word for it. It's considered to be a false value. And so a false value becomes 0, and is not a number is 0. I mean, that's the best explanation I can come up with. I don't know why. Now, of course, you can't come back here and say console log 1 plus a blank string, because it won't come out to be a number. It'll actually come out to be a string. So it doesn't really coerce itself to be false, but for some reason, JavaScript believes that a empty string is indeed a number. I think it's because of type coercion. I really don't know. I'm not sure. So the bottom line here is that is not a number is a great function to be able to determine whether your variable is a number or not, but you really got to be careful in your type conversions. It's almost better if you use the number.isNotANumber function, which is a method off of the number object, or to go even further than that, to write yourself your own little polyfill to ensure that the type of that variable is a number. So that's really it all in a nutstring with is not a number. Again, great for determining whether your variable is a number or not, but you got to be careful in making sure that the type coercion problems here doesn't quite bite you. And that's all there is to is not a number. I hope you enjoyed our video. Hope I didn't bore you to death. Please watch all of our videos at www.boringjavascript.com. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, or check out everything at blog.thevirtuoid.com. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you later.